Well, it's very nice to see a good crowd here today. I want to thank everyone for taking the time out of their day and for attending today's event. Probably everyone here agrees that we need to learn.
Drill here, drill now!
Probably everyone here today agrees that we need to learn more about the gas industry. If you're one of the folks who would like to lease their land, or you may belong to a landowners coalition specifically because you know to protect yourself, you need to know all you can about the gas industry, and you need other people banding together with you to create negotiating strength, and you need good lawyers. So we all know we need to get up to speed, and that's the purpose of this meeting. We're here to learn from the experience of people who've leased their land, people who are living in the midst of gas development in the communities, so we can make more informed decisions going forward. In the interest of making this event as informative as possible, we set up some ground rules. First of all, we are aware that Chesapeake Energy sent out an email asking supporters of drilling to attend today's event. To anyone who may be here on Chesapeake's behalf, this meeting will not be used for Chesapeake's purposes. I don't watch TV, but I'm told that airways are awash with ads promoting natural gas. I've certainly seen a lot of ads in newspapers promoting that same thing. Chesapeake, other drilling companies, and the industry trade groups can spend the money to buy all the time and space they want to get their message across. Most people in this room are already subjected to that message on a daily and even perhaps hourly basis. That's Chesapeake's time, the time they buy with the money they borrowed from their shareholders and taken from lessers. Little groups that have collaborated to bring us this forum cannot afford TV and radio ads. These small grassroots community groups, our
Funded by the Park
have
Foundation.
scraped together enough money to rent this theater and put some ads in local papers. They bake the cookies and organize the event. This is their time to share with us information that we're not getting from those expensive TV and radio ads. This is a pro-information meeting. Chesapeake's email draws us toward the conclusion that Chesapeake thinks that this pro-information meeting is an anti-gas meeting that needs challenging. And I think we should probably all wonder why that might be. If Chesapeake wants to have its own information meeting, in addition to all the radio and TV ads, let them organize it. This is not their meeting. If you've come to speak for Chesapeake or the gas industry, please hold your advocacy and comments until the meeting that Chesapeake schedules and pays for. On the other hand, questions based specifically on the content of the presentation we'll hear tonight are encouraged, and we'll do our best to get everyone involved during the discussion period that follows. One more thing, audience members, the speakers request that any audience members who would like to audio or videotape tonight's event, please sign a sheet that is going around. The speakers would like the name, address, and contact information of any audio tapers or videotapers. And next, I'd like to present Lori Stratton, one of the organizers that will present a short slide presentation. Thank you.
Hi there. Thank you, everyone, for coming. We really appreciate you being here. The first thing I really would like to get out there is that we have a lot in common. It really doesn't matter whether you would like to see your gas developed, you would like to lease, or if you are concerned about gas development and think that there are some things that we need to slow down on. Regardless of where you're at in your learning curve right now, we all want the same things for our community. We want to live in a prosperous community. We want to see our neighbors well cared for. We want a responsive town government that listens to us. So we all have these interests in our communities in common, and we really need to stop falling into that trap of labeling ourselves as one thing or another. I've been researching gas for 3 years now, ever since Chesapeake sent me a lease offer. I'm a landowner. I have 189 acres. And that lease offer was very welcome to me. I looked at it and I thought, wow, this is great. My husband's work has been kind of outsourced to other countries, and it would be just wonderful to have some kind of source of easy money. So when we got that, we signed up with the Landowners Coalition and started doing some research. My research led me to decide that, yeah, I could make some money, but would I be happy with what happened to my land? And could I live with what I did to my neighbors who didn't have any land and who wouldn't be able to make any money and just see all of the hazards and consequences that come with gas drilling? So that's, I'm still on the learning curve, just like everybody else. And I think it's really a great thing if we all think of ourselves as neighbors, people who can learn from each other and people who need to talk to each other. While anybody who is filming who has not yet filled out the form is doing so, I just have a few slides that I'd like to share with you. This will only take about 15 minutes and then we will get to the main event. What I really wanted to talk about today was an experience of a little place that you may have heard of called Mount Pleasant Township or Hickory, Pennsylvania. And what they found, let's see, let me turn that on. There we go. This is Stephanie and Chris Hallowich and their two kids. They live in Hickory, Pennsylvania, and they are ahead of us on the learning curve. This is their house. And you can, I'll just use my pointer. Right there, that's their house. And as you can see, a whole lot of gas development came in around them. And here's another shot. Whoops, let's go a little too far with this thing. There we go. You can see more of the development that has taken place around their house. They started to experience health problems from air quality and water issues. This is someone else who lives in Hickory, Pennsylvania, Jenny Simpson, and that's her water. That's, I think, her son Daryl holding another jar of his water. This is an impoundment that went in next to June Chapel's house. That's her house right there. And then this very large impoundment that, as you can see, takes water back and forth from fracking. So as you can see, there's all these lines coursing through. Those were bringing back, that's what the industry calls recycling. They were bringing back frack water from various wells and putting it in that big impoundment. And the air quality problems were making them sick. You can imagine, this was a 100-acre site that the gas company had, that they could have put that impoundment almost anywhere. But as they so often do, they put it right smack next to a house.
That's a lie.
Well, the pictures are telling.
They're from 2006.
Anyway, let's move forward.
Quiet.
Yeah, when were those pictures from?
2006.
They're being very noisy.
Could we please have it
There's no
quiet?
good information here. We'd
You
like
mean
to
like
know
they were in
the
Sydney?
information on it.
There is a
Hey,
Q&A
are you
period at
appointed
the
by
end.
somebody to make remarks around here? Shut the fuck up.
Whoa, nice mouth. Nice mouth, you old fuck. I'm a fucking landowner, that's why I am. You got a problem with that? You're here trying to take my rights?
I don't
There will be a question and answer period after.
Don't get in my fucking face and don't touch me.
And shut up!
Please.
Yeah, like you know about dirty language.
He's for first.
He fucking attacked me. Call him.
Take a seat.
Just relax, Vic.
Oh, tell this guy get out of my face.
That's right.
Vic.
Everyone,
I was sitting here being quiet, minding my
I'll
business.
tell him to get.
Take
I'll
a
tell him to
seat.
get out of your face. I did.
Everyone
I did.
take
You
a
move out
seat.
here. Don't. He won't say that anymore. I'm sorry.
everyone take a seat and stay in it.
Thank you, Carolyn.
Anyone who abuses the privilege of being in this theater will be asked to leave. We have people here who will escort you out. Now, does anyone have an issue with that?
Thank you very much.
If you have an issue with that right now, you may be leaving right now. All right.
Just to help you, Carolyn, I am the mayor of the Village of Deposit. The village has no connection with gas drilling whatsoever. Here to learn. I've called for the village police to come. Any more of this outburst stuff and you're going to be taken out of here. And we don't need it. It's not part of what we're here for. That's not what we're here. We're here to sit and listen and learn, whether you agree with it or not.
Thank you very much. There will be, as I think was indicated earlier, a discussion period afterwards, at which point everyone can ask their questions or make their comments. But we ask that you do save your questions and comments for that time. Please do not interrupt the presentations. So, 95% of Mount Pleasant Township acres are leased to Range Resources. And officials were never opposed to drilling, but it was when various citizens began voicing complaints and issues, serious problems that they were having from drilling, that the officials decided that it was possibly time to do something to implement some protections. This is one of the town supervisors. His name is Larry Grimm. I don't know if he's still a town supervisor, but I just wanted to put his picture in there. That's from February '09. Because he was in a story I'm going to quote. I'm going to read some of the things that he was quoted as saying. In this Reuters story, Grimm and others in Hickory say they have already paid a high price for the development of their quiet community, from the noise of drills and compressors, heavy truck traffic, damaging local roads, and air pollution from flaring or escaping gas. They also say that Range, one of the biggest players in the Marcellus drilling, appears determined to tap the vast reserve regardless of local concerns. They have lied to us so much, Grimm told Reuters. This was almost a pristine township. They have taken the innocence off it, he said. So the township officials decided, after spending many months of research going around the country, looking at cases of other areas that have experienced drilling, they went out west, that they needed to do something about their zoning. And what we need to know just a little bit about here is the two kinds of zoning that are possible. One is conditional use, and the other is permitted use. Conditional use zoning provides for hearings. The citizens have some input, and the township can set conditions like some setbacks or special noise-reducing fence or any number of things that help to mitigate the impacts. The other option is permitted use zoning. This is the one that the gas industry likes because it is all predetermined. There's no uncertainty. General conditions apply to all. There are no hearings. The township can't impose any conditions. It's cheaper and faster, and it's very predictable for the gas companies. That's the one they want. So when Mount Pleasant crafted a draft conditional use zoning ordinance, because the officials were listening to their constituents and trying to serve their constituents' interests, they repeatedly sought Range's input because they really wanted a situation that Range could live with. They wanted drilling to go forward. They just wanted to go forward in a way that protected people as much as possible. But Range refused to provide that input, even though they were repeatedly requested. And instead, they leveraged their advantage over the town in a letter promoting their own permitted use, the kind of zoning they like, their own proposal. And I just want to read you this, I'll read the last paragraph there. This is an example of how they leverage. The more restrictions placed on our activities, the more difficult it is for us to move forward. While we plan to continue drilling in Mount Pleasant, each additional obstacle to our progress is an added expense that could over time affect the level of our activities there. In short, if we don't drill the wells, no gas is produced. And no gas means no royalties. And no gas extraction also means that there's no more money being spread liberally around the town in the various ways that they do that. They make large donations. They make sure they take care of various interests. And it helps smooth the way for them. I think this is really important because it shows just how they feel about their ability to leverage townships financially. If you notice the way that letter is addressed, they accidentally lit that one out. But this is how they internally addressed it. Mr. and Mrs. Joe Schmo, 10 Cash-Strapped Lane, Hickory, Pennsylvania. That's what they think of the citizens. We've got you over a barrel. We know we've got you, and you're gonna do what we want. Now remember, the township official's effort was not to stop or impede gas drilling in any way. They just wanted something that would provide a measure of control for their residents, a little bit of safety. And they kept on seeking Range's input, looking for something everybody would be happy with. In March 2011, Range called a meeting and they presented their model permitted use ordinance, the kind that gas drilling companies like. And they told the township in this meeting, if you accept, we'll write a letter to all of your residents praising you. If you decide that you really want to go forward with your conditional use ordinance, we're going to write a letter that tells the residents that the supervisors are the ones standing between lessors and the royalties. And in fact, the town manager says that Range threatened to tell residents in that same letter that would diss the supervisors how they could sue each of the supervisors. No one, well, I'll try to hold my opinion, but they accidentally or on purpose, nobody really knows, they sent out both letters. They sent out the nice letter, which was received by Stephanie Hallowich on April 2nd. Then they sent out the mean letter too. It was supposed to be one or the other. They sent out both. This one was received on April 4th. And if you notice, none of these letters are dated because Range doesn't date anything. That's their policy. It definitely makes it harder to keep track of them. This is an excerpt from the mean letter, the one that went out because the supervisors didn't work with Range and caved to their permitted use zoning ordinance. The second paragraph says, this goes out to all the residents, so all the lessors. Ultimately, we may be forced to shift activity to other more cooperative townships. Even the previous paragraph says, due to continuing difficulties with your township supervisors and their unwillingness to work with us, which just wasn't the case. Ultimately, we may be forced to shift activities to other more cooperative townships. The shifting of operational activities will inevitably result in a shift of related activities, including the purchase of goods, services, and food to other more cooperative communities. We will be hosting an open meeting on April 6th. In addition, we will be evaluating legal action, including federal and state courses of action. We regret any hardship this may cause you, but after months of effort on our part, we are left with no other choice. There was no months of effort. The town manager says there was no contact aside from that meeting. There was never any response to the town's continued efforts to find a common ground. At that April 6th meeting, lo and behold, Jim Cannon, Range PR specialist, tells the crowd of angry lessers, oh, Range could live with conditional use. That's what the township had been going for. They never told the town that, as long as the process wasn't too drawn out. But that was a completely out of the blue and completely anomalous statement. Didn't fit with anything else that happened before or after. Finally, Mount Pleasant proposed arbitration. In May 2011, a retired federal judge presided over the proceedings, and the townships and the drillers came to a compromise both could live with. The town got their conditional use zoning. They would have to streamline the process to avoid the delays that Range was worried about. And after mediation, township supervisors voted the measure into law. Range pulled out of Mount Pleasant anyway. They claimed it had been taken by surprise, had never been given a chance to sign off on the final language, had only found out a day in advance. This is a gas company. They have office buildings full of lawyers. The spokesperson said, after all the town's efforts, it's disheartening that the township could not respect the mediation process. And that makes us very reluctant to make 2-year-out operation plans based on a permitting process that we can predict from a township that just went back on their word. There's just nothing in the timeline to support that allegation. But that is the way that they continually operated with the town of Mount Pleasant. They just were constantly shifting. You could never count on what they were going to say or what they were going to do, because they'd say one thing this time and another thing next time. The journalist who wrote the source report from which much of this is taken concluded that Range's strategy has worked. A lot of people do blame the supervisors for what happened. I got to Mount Pleasant the day after the primary when the lone supervisor up for re-election was defeated. And so, in summary, this is the takeaway. I just want people to be able to see the way that when the gas industry comes to town, because of their power and influence, you don't have the kind of relationship with your town government, and your town government doesn't have the kind of relationship with you that existed previously. The local officials were unable to do their jobs. They were just trying to enable gas drilling and protect their constituents. That's their job. They were trying to do their jobs. They were prevented from doing so. The monetary influence of gas companies was used to pit citizens against officials, and it worked. Choices. When I was first working on this presentation, I talked to Stephanie Halowich, and I thought, from what she said, I just thought, you know what? I bet you pretty soon there's going to be a gag order there. And that's what happens. This industry doesn't really want people to talk about their experiences. So if you are in a situation like Stephanie and her family, where you can't drink your water and the air is making your kids sick, then you have to get out. And you have a legal case, so the company responds. They can, if you want to, they'll gladly fight you for years and years and years and years. Your kids will grow up being exposed to the same things that are causing the problem. Most people can't accept that. They have to take a settlement. They have to get out. And to get out, they have to agree not to speak about their situation anymore. And that's what happened. This PA family settled civil suit over gas drilling. So Stephanie can't talk to us anymore about the kind of experiences that she had with Range Resources, and Mark West, who operated the compressor station next to her. It caused so many problems for her. These are some sources for you that I realize you can't take these down, but if you're interested, I can provide you these links. And that is the radio program that this is a sort of Reader's Digest condensed version of some reporting done by on this show. So if you'd really like to get the details, and actually far better that you should hear it from them than from me, but I wanted you to know about it. So I hope that you will look this program up and listen to it. It's only about 23 minutes, and it's an eye-opener. The personal accounts and photos that people were asking for, where did those photos come from, when were they taken? You can find them at Marcellus Shale US. That man is amazing. He's constantly adding new information. And, we want to finish out. We're actually going to let Range Resources have the last word. This is a compressor station that's 600 feet from where Stephanie lived. And here's the excerpt. We heard a big boom. It shook our house, Rebecca Skirpen told Paul. Range Resources denied there was any sort of explosion. Thank you very much. We're going to give our
Good afternoon. I'm Carolyn French, and I am from Bradford County. I'm a conventional dairy farmer, and I'll let Carolyn announce.
I'm Carolyn Knapp, and I'm an organic dairy farmer, and I live in Shashequin, Bradford County.
Before we get started, I'm going to do a little speech. I like to tell stories, and this is the way I do it. Good afternoon. Carolyn and I are really pleased to be here. We would like to present to all of you, both pro-gas and anti-gas representatives. And if there's anyone here that's on the fence, I welcome you as well. I find it really funny that we have to label ourselves anti-gas or pro-gas. Carolyn and I have chosen not to label ourselves at all. We are neither pro or anti-gas. We are simply living in a time of miscommunication, succumbing to misinformation, and our safety and well-being is in question. Because of this, we have seen our communities become divided, just like this room. We have drawn the line, and we are not budging. Everything has become black and white. No one has taken the time to explore the gray areas. This has resulted in a divide in our community and your community as well. When our communities need each other's support more than ever. I hope after this presentation, you will walk away from here with an understanding of how each other feels and ask what can be done to rebuild this community. Our presentation is called Neighbor to Neighbor, Living the Drill, but after recent events, I would like to call it Rebuilding Our Fractured Community. And I hope you enjoy this presentation. We are, Carolyn and I started a group called PL Gas. It stands for Pennsylvania Landowners Group for Awareness and Solutions. We are aware of the stories, whether it is in Louisiana, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Texas, Colorado, Wyoming, Michigan, North Dakota, or Pennsylvania, or New York State. We want to know, what are the solutions? Let's get right down to the brass tacks and let's find out what the solutions can be. First of all right, you want to do it?
This is just a slide, and we're going to go through all of these, but we realize that there are benefits. And we want to show the benefits because we believe that they are real. And these are the list. Additional revenue, additional jobs, what they want to call energy independence, increase in actions of civic responsibility, which is one of the things that we'll expand on.
We recognize that there's additional revenue to the landowners. You do get sign-on bonus money, but I want to tell you what my experience was about that. I want you guys to understand that this is truly a sale. It's a sale price on your mineral interest. This sale is based on the percentage, not on the acres that is getting leased, okay? You're selling your percentage. You got to understand what that percentage is worth. And we're going to talk about that in a couple more slides. So I want you to think about that when you're negotiating your lease. The agreements, such as pipeline agreements, the compressor stations, surface use agreements, just to name a few. And this language of these agreements may supersede the language of the lease. So negotiate a great lease, but don't strip that lease when you sign those agreements, okay? And we'll talk about that later if you have any questions. Just remember that when you sign the agreements, that this is going to change the value of your property. That's what we're seeing down in my hometown. Think about asking for a rental fee. Okay, it's done in other states. Do it in New York State. We didn't get a chance to do it. Some people are getting the chance in Pennsylvania, but we were not aware of that at that time. Also, there's another way of generating money, and that's the sale of the mineral rights. And that is, we had 12.5% mineral right left, or a royalty rate. We have been bombarded from California, Colorado, people, other gas companies, law firms, and investors want to buy those mineral rights. But in the state of Pennsylvania, if I do not own the mineral rights underneath my property, whoever owns the majority of that has the say in how the surface is developed. So I want you to just give you a heads up on that as well. You want to do that one?
Landowners' use of additional revenue. We see the revenue that they're getting from bonus, the bonus sign-on monies and from the agreements are being used to improve their homes. There is a great amount of home improvement going on. Baseline testing, which we feel is very important. If the industry is going to come in, you need to get your own baseline testing of the water, of the air, and in my case, because I'm farming, I do it for the soil as well. And some of that bonus money is being used in my household for that as well as others. Offsetting costs are, unfortunately, with this industry, with it being in your area, it comes for additional costs that the landowner is expected to expend, such as, for instance, my farm insurance just went up. I just got the bill the other day. That's because of the activity that's going on around. There are some other additional costs that I think we talk about later on, but the costs go up. Taxes are anticipated to go up. Your property turns into a commercial piece of property once the pad is put on it. I don't have that particularly on my property, but if a pad's accessed, and the pad will turn into a commercial piece of property, which will then be charged commercial taxes rather than agricultural taxes. And the last thing is purchasing additional land. There are a lot of people in our area that are using their bonus sign-on money to fund other purchases.
Is it better that she stands over there, because I hate swapping? Is that okay if she stands there?
Yeah, that's fine.
You guys can see? Okay, great. I hate sticks. Business use of additional revenue. We've seen a growth of both existing and new businesses, such as restaurants, hotels, rental properties, rental equipment, and jewelry stores. The amazing one is the jewelry stores down in Towanda. They started making drill bit earrings and drill bit necklaces and stuff like that. It has been very popular. That jewelry store almost went under. So that's what is going on there. The restaurants, it's kind of localized what we're watching. If there is a lot of activity in a rural area and there's only one mom and pop restaurant, they will bombard the waitresses. They'll hire out more waitresses for that area. And within about 6 months to 8 months, they pick up and leave and they go to another area. And then they have to lay off or let the waitress go. So that's what we're watching at this time. Next slide. All right.
I think it's important to note here that this is for particular businesses. There are some businesses, I have business owner friends, and their businesses aren't doing good, so it's particularly in the service area businesses, but there are other businesses that are not doing as well.
She always gives me the lawyer and the politicians. Is there any lawyers or politicians here today? There's one. Okay, I'm not going to be nice. Lawyers in demand for negotiating agreements, liability issues, and financial planning. I want to get on the lawyers for 1 minute. The lawyers in my area, in 2006, we signed that lease. Everybody comes back to us and says, why didn't you guys get an oil and gas lawyer? Well, guess what? We didn't have oil and gas lawyers then. And we still really don't. The people that I'm friends with several lawyers, and they specialize in elder law. They put the shingle out and said they were oil and gas lawyers. These lawyers have attached their name to the royalty rates. So if you guys have signed leases or are going to negotiate these other agreements, be careful. Do not allow your whoever's negotiating the lease attach their name to the royalty rate. Our royalty rate was 12.5. They attached it and they are charging a 2%. So my royalty rate now is 10.5. Okay? Just something to think about. Also, we did have some lawyers that negotiated those agreements. They were basic leases. We've talked to several of these people. And then the guy said, go ahead, it's okay. Sign the lease. It's no problem. What we are finding is those lawyers it's a conflict of interest because they are also representing the gas industry as well. So just do your homework and check out your lawyers. Now the politicians are experiencing a financial gain and gifts. I think that's enough said. I'm telling you, all I want to do is grab a hold of their pockets, pull them out, let the rabbit ears fall out, and there's the money. Look, they were voted in there by you and I to protect the safety and well-being and the safety, whether it be the truck traffic, whether it be water contamination, whatever it may be, they're not there. We just experienced a flood September 7th and 8th down home. My commissioner, Doug McClinko, used his gift from Chesapeake Energy and scooted his little butt right down to Penn State and watched the football game while we needed him the most. That did not make me happy, and it did not make the people in Bradford County happy. Okay? So, just a little word out there, elections are coming, and you work for us. Just remember that. Okay, additional revenue to gas industries. Leasing allows the gas companies to make additional money. I kind of explained that to you with the 12.5%. Also, they make money off the stocks. They're hedging the market. If you go to the pads, you will see the meter stations that are on the pipeline and right on the Christmas tree itself or on the wellhead. They control the gas volume to the market. Nobody else does. So if they want to flood the market and they're hedging it down, the market is flooded, so the money will go down. Sales of subsurface interest. We're going to explain that next, right? Okay, next. Yeah, you can talk that. No,
The creation of additional jobs. I'm sure you're all aware that they've put out a lot of statistics on additional jobs. I'm not arguing, and I don't think Carol will argue that there aren't additional jobs. My question is, what is in the figures and statistics that they're giving us? What I see in our area is the people that they have hired that are in administrative positions within the gas industry all had jobs in our local community prior to going to the gas industry. So are they including those numbers in their statistics? If they say they've given 14,000 jobs, are they including the ones they've taken out of our local community? So I have a question about that. The other thing is, are they temporary or permanent jobs? The majority of the jobs that my children, even myself, would qualify for in the gas industry are jobs that will be temporary jobs in the area. They won't be permanent. They're generally truck drivers, so that's what we're seeing, mostly CDL drivers. All of the other industry jobs that are higher paying require experience that our workforce does not have. So I agree that they are creating positions, but I disagree that they are not the positions that I would like to go for, and I do not believe that it's a permanent position, nor do I believe that they are all unemployed people going back to work.
I just want to add a little bit to that one. We had our sheriff, our deputy. They were hired for security for the gas industry in our area. So that position was not created. They already had it. In fact, now you have to scurry around and find somebody else. Our conservation district, they took 4 of our men out of there to work for the gas industry. They were already working. So now that's stripped down. They cannot afford to hire the conservation district to fill those positions because, nobody wants to come in for the $15 an hour when you can work elsewhere, and they cannot just compete with the gas industry. So that's what we're seeing with that part.
At least there's jobs.
Oh, the trucking? Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, I'm sure you're also well aware of the fact that the industry says that this proposed, well, I'll talk first about the proposed natural gas infrastructure. You hear a lot about switching all of our power plants over to natural gas, switching all of our vehicles over to natural gas. Everything's going to be switched over. But my question is, how long is the supply going to last to fuel all of these new things that you're making? And when we stop being able to get gas, or in some cases, if the industry turns the spigot off, what do we do? What is plan B? Nobody is thinking about that. The second thing is, we are well aware, and the industry is finally admitting that they are planning on exporting this natural gas. There is no question. You can go onto Chesapeake's website. They say they'll do it. I've talked with them in conversations, and they've said they'll do it because they can make more money. They can make more money. That's the key. It's not going to be the royalty owners, because what's going to happen is they're going to sell it to as a commodity in the States, and you're not going to get the price that they're selling for it overseas. So not only are we losing that supply, but you're going to be losing royalty interests. So the energy independence idea, it doesn't hold water.
Civic responsibility. Thank God the gas industry did come to our area. We had a lot of sleepy landowners there, and I was one of them. I was passive about what was happening in my area. I would vote, but now that they are there, they're waking them up to understand that we do have some rights. When you question what's going on, the activity in your area, you start going, attending the meetings. I've been to countless county meetings, township meetings, and planning commission meetings. I'll tell you, at first it was boring, and now I'm learning a lot. Voting, I see a lot of young kids getting out there to vote now to make their voices heard because they are tired of what is actually happening. The attending at the hearing, the public speaking engagements, Carolyn and I, hey look, I'd rather be milking a cow than standing up here talking to you guys. All I was is a farmer. And, at first it took a lot of nerves. And I'll tell you what, I haven't messed my pants yet, but I could if you guys get bigger, if you guys start yelling. So, I learned how to talk out here. It's not professional, but, I want to get my voice heard and my point across. This is happening to us, and it could happen to you guys. We also see a lot of things stirring up throughout our nation. For example, occupying Wall Street. We are understanding it's a corporate world. Is corporate world what it really, is that what we want to live with? There's a lot of questions going on out there. So, next one. Understanding your lease. This is something that I think is very important. I want you to think about your neighbors. When you sign your lease, you affect your neighbors. And when your neighbors sign their lease, it affects you as well. In the agreements that I have seen go past my kitchen table and my neighbor's table, especially the surface use agreements, you will accept all liabilities. It's in fine print right at the bottom. You accept all liabilities, whether it be death or injury that would happen on the pad. I have to ask you, are you accepting liabilities or responsibilities if your well contaminates your neighbor's or your community's water? Could you lose your farm? Could you lose your home? Is the community going to sue you, or is your neighbors going to sue you? I can tell you what happened in Towanda. A young man from Tennessee was working on a rig. He died. His family sued the farmer that had the well on him. And most likely, that farmer was not going to generate royalties on that whole entire acreage. So he could lose his farm. They sued Nomac, that was the drilling company, and they're still suing Chesapeake. So there's a lot of risk involved. It's not all cracked up to what it sounds like. So it's all in the language of your leases, guys. A lease is not a true term lease. I sold insurance. A term lease is, my term lease said every 5 years. Even though your property is caught in a production unit, you should have the right to renegotiate that lease. But if you're caught in a pooling or production unit, you cannot negotiate that lease anymore, unless you have a pew clause. And if you guys want to talk about that later, we will. But right now, you have to look at it as a sale. Do not, when you negotiate leases, do not include your surface. It should only talk about the subsurface, the amount of royalties, the amount of acres, what formation, and etc. We can talk about that if you guys want to later on too. Environmental responsibilities. I don't remember what we wrote about that one. We pretty much negotiated if they contaminated our water, that because of the cows, we needed the quality and quantity water. And that's in question. So, and then the royalty interest, you have to,
That's my baby.
that is, okay, I'm moving.
This was something that I found in our courthouse. It's kind of an interesting happening. It happens to be the property that my daughter is leased in with Chief. It has been assigned 12 times. And now this is not a direct assignment where Chief gave it to someone. Chief has actually sold percentages of the interest to other people. Some of them are family trusts, some of them are in foreign countries, some of them are in the countries. So what we try to get forward to people that we talk about is to let them know that what they have below them is being resold and the industry is making money on it even before they have a drill on your property. Okay. So this is how we visualize it. When you have your property originally, you own 100% of what's underneath you, theoretically to the center of the earth. You then enter into a lease contract and you're left with, in our case, 12.5%. The larger portion you have sold to the gas industry. They then take that larger share and they sell it to whomever they want. My lease was sold to Statoil, Anadarko, several other people. This particular lease was sold to 12 other people, parties.
And it's not limited to gas industry, okay? If you have a lot of money, there's family trust funds. If you look into that paperwork, those family trust funds were located in Texas, located in Australia, and China. So they bought interest underneath that property.
And that it doesn't end there because the portion, and you might not be able to see it, but the portion of your 12.5 is even further reduced because in most cases you get to pay production costs. In one of my leases, I get to pay production costs twice.
You don't. And when you negotiate a lease, you want to define production costs. Right now, we have brand new roads out in front of our house. That is part of my production cost. Okay? You want to understand that it is not only transportation, evaporation, compressing, it is all the other things that go along with the development of the gas. Okay? So
we were actually told, and it explained pretty easy this way. You pay in production costs for that guy to drive there in his pickup truck, his salary, to look at your pad once a week, once a day, His salary comes out of your production costs.
This is my lease. We signed that lease. I'll tell you the process, how that went. We had a guy come to our house in March. He started off with $25. You know, that was a lot of money because we were signing leases for over 40 years for $1. Sometimes it was $5. Where I lived, it was Wyndham. It's part of the stagecoach. It goes all the way up to Wingo, New York. And back in the 80s, they came by and they were drilling. It literally looked like they were drilling for water. So, you know, I thought, this is great. So we were hesitant. They came along with $35. We couldn't believe they were bringing $35. So then we thought, okay, something is up. What's going on? Then we were talking to a guy that was helping negotiate this because his wife worked for a gas company out in Oklahoma City. We were ahead of the game in 2006 because we got 21 addendums in our lease. The majority of the people just got a brass tacks lease. That's all there was. They offered us, and that we signed for $85. In the lease, though, thank goodness for the woman that was working for the gas company, it said that once the 5 years was up, it was done. As of August 29th, 2011, my lease expired. But the catcher is, and we just found this because we go down to our courthouse, Towanda Courthouse. Chesapeake has signed that lease October 3rd, 2011. They don't own the mineral rights, but yet they sold the portion of mineral rights to Anadarko. And Anadarko sold a percentage to another gas company. They don't own the mineral rights. It goes back to that pie, okay? So this is what we're finding out just right down in the recorder's office.
I just want to add to that, and the reason why this is important to me is because they are not even being honest with the other gas companies. They're selling things that don't even belong to them, and the other company isn't even checking to see whether it's really theirs to begin with.
Okay, now it's going to get a little uglier. I told you we're going to make you all mad. Risk of gas exploration. We're going to explain the risk of the business, community, personal, and the shared risk with the gas exploration. Next.
With the businesses, particularly I'm in the dairy business. I also have a beef herd. I'm worried about contamination of my product before it gets to market. And I guess you're not too sure where I'm going with that, but let's put it this way. With the stories that I've heard in the area, I go to sleep every night wondering whether or not my water is going to be contaminated in the morning. I can make sure that my children are in bed at night and they're not drinking water, but unfortunately I can't do that with my cows. They're out, and there is a good possibility that when I wake up in the morning, those cows might have already drank contaminated water. What does that mean to me? That means that I have no market, I have no stock, and my property has become devalued by 80%. I don't know about every other farmer, but my retirement is in my property. And if that happens to me overnight, it's not a good thing. So I'm worried about contamination. You going on with that or no?
We have seen, we've been up in New York State, up near Seneca Falls area. You guys have wine country up there. A lot of people are talking about the decrease in tourism. Bradford County is a very beautiful place. I didn't realize how beautiful it was until I realized that it could be taken away from me. And I started really opening my eyes and looking at the hills, the rolling hills. The sale of Bradford County, it was going to be a retirement place. and a place for tourism coming out of Scranton, Harrisburg, Philadelphia. We were seeing a lot of that, and bed and breakfasts were popping up. But now that's dying down. Dead zones. I am not aware of dead zones in our area, but out in Wyoming and Colorado, I have some friends out there. We go hunting out there as well. And that's what we're kind of worried about because of hunting. Because of the contamination, there's no vegetation there. The animals are not reproducing there as well. That's just something that you guys got to see. And then we also are aware of, what's that?
Well, the next one is, I think she spoke to that earlier. Some of our businesses are experiencing an inability to get to fill their workforce because they can't compete with the industry wages. So if you visit Towanda and you visit the Athens there, it is very usual to see help wanted signs for all of the other industries that aren't related to the gas because they can't get those positions filled. The lack of the availability of parking downtown, not only is the traffic very difficult to get through in Towanda, the businesses rely on street parking a lot because we don't have the public parking, and you'll find that the majority of the spots are taken up by industry people, especially downtown Towanda, who are inside the busy courthouse researching titles.
This is the example of our traffic. This is Wysock. This is coming down into Towanda. Probably 3 years ago, you wouldn't have seen that. We usually go from Wysock to Towanda. It takes you about 5 minutes. Now it's between an hour to 45 minutes. That's what we are seeing. It's just because of, like you see, the loggers. You have to move the trees off to get the pipeline in. You have to move the trees to get pads in. Also, the water trucks, all the heavy equipment. It's just a time-consuming thing. You know, to me, that wasn't a nuisance at first, but one time it did make me mad. So it's a little bit of a nuisance. Okay.
The other is self-explanatory. The community risks. Crime has gone up tremendously. And we're finally getting the local police forces to acknowledge it. The newspaper, the SARE, acknowledged it. That is something that is a reality. Our jails are full. The police reports in the paper have grown. It comes with the people that are coming in. It comes with increase in general of population. But you're also talking about a transient workforce that comes in. And it has a lot to do with the increase in crime. And the state police, I had a conversation with them the other day, and they agree the same thing. I want to talk about that. When we go to the commissioners' meetings, the Rape and Crisis Center was there. Shocked me. I mean, I wasn't aware of what was going on. She was asking for more money, for more help, because one, go back to 2009, they gave us statistics of how many rapes and abuse was going on. And then from January to July, it surpassed the whole year of 2009. That was in 2010. Then we were at the meeting in January of 2011, and that surpassed the entire year from in 2010. It just shocked me. And now it was just in the newspaper that they're asking for more money because of the flood. There's homeless people that are adding more of a concern. So, you know, this is a ripple effect is what we're seeing. The one of use of natural resources. In my area, we have a quarry. A lot of people have quarries in Susquehanna County, some in Bradford County. When they put those impoundment ponds in, this is from personal experience, they removed the shale. At first they did not pay him for it. He had to go after the money. You need that shale for the roadways, you need the shale and the stone to build the pads. At first, we just negotiated the surface, and that was taken away. So that's something else you want to what I had in mind with this as well is that I guess you have to be there to see the amount of shale that the industry is using in all their pads. You can imagine that with all of those pads, they have to have a good shale on it. Now, the shale businesses are doing well, but I worry and I'm concerned about, am I going to have shale left for something I might want to do in the future, or my children want to do, or my grandchildren? Because actually, I have a son-in-law whose father recently passed away, and he owned a shale pit. He said, I don't think ever in my lifetime I'll see that shale pit disappear. Well, it's almost more than half gone since the industry has been in, and the industry is only beginning. The unreasonable delay or payment or non-payment is another thing we've discovered by talking to people. The local businesses, the industry doesn't pay except for on a 180-day back pay, so to speak. Most of our industries in the area, the small businesses, cannot operate waiting for 180 days to get paid for the business that they do. So they have a couple of choices. They don't get paid, and in some cases, the industry has taken over their businesses, saying, you can't pay me, well, how much can I get for your business? And it's not that they don't compensate them for the business, but it's forcing them or pressuring them into doing something that they don't want to do. The increase in cost, or taxes, I think I spoke to that already. Obviously, you can imagine that the state and the locals are already trying to figure out how to tax that subsurface. In our area, what they're doing with deeds is they're separating deeds. They're separating the surface from the subsurface. They're making 2 deeds on a piece of property. Well, when 2 deeds go on a piece of property, you can rest assured that the county office is going to try to find a way to tax that. So that's going to be your additional taxes, your commercial taxes when the pad goes on. Insurance goes up. I've asked my insurance agent, if I get a pad on my property, will that pad be insured? And they've told me no, they can't insure it. So you have to rely on the fact whether or not the gas company is going to adequately insure it, which I will explain later that they even admit that they can't do that. Tremendous strain on emergency services. There's a lot of ambulance, there's a lot of accidents. There's almost generally one rollover, a track accident every week, if not more. I have bags filled with articles that I've collected on accidents and deaths. I just had a recent 4-H leader of mine who died as a result of an impact with a gas pickup truck. Housing shortage, that came to light very early on. Unfortunately, the local residents in our area cannot pay what the gas industry can pay. So they were actually getting people that were thrown out of their homes because the landlord wanted to make more money. They couldn't afford to pay it working at McDonald's or working at Walmart, so they were out. There were stories of people living in tents, people going to other family members' homes and doubling up. So housing shortage was a big issue and is still a big issue. We're hoping that it will level off, but we haven't seen that yet. The road damage and who is responsible for it. And I think the next slide is a picture of my road. It's a state road. This was in the late February of this year. They decided to destroy the road first by using it and then fix it. It left us of 2 weeks of traveling in 3-foot ditches on a state road. It now has since been redone again for the second time, which it isn't better because it's way up high and we can't get our implements into the field because the drop is so drastic. Now we're going to cover some of the risk.
What we see here is the lost land use. They are putting this on this is called the Kingsley pad in East Smithfield. Once this is put in, that farmer, as a farmer, I didn't think about this when I signed the lease. I thought that they would reclaim it once they drilled it. But they are going to drill they'll put one pad on, they're putting one well on, then additional 6 wells. Now they're talking up to 12 wells on that pad. So, and then they said every 5 years they will come back and drill one of those wells. I don't know, but that's what they're saying. So if you take every 5 years times that by 12, that's about 60 years, that they will not have access to that well pad. Now, in your guys' mind, you might think of it as a 300 by 300 foot pad. When you look at it, when it comes across the Plan Commission, the supervisors, you will see that it actually takes out between 38 to 42 acres. It's where they put the dirt, they pile the dirt, and also the access roads. So you have to keep that in mind. That's how much land is going out of agriculture. We also watched land go out of agriculture for compressor stations. They need a lot of land to get the infrastructure in. And this is right by Fox Chase Farm. Route 220 runs right by there. That's supposed to be the largest compressor station in Bradford County at this time. Next. Roll back. Okay. Right now, this is one of the pipelines. It's a 40-mile pipeline. It's an 18-inch line running from Wyalusing to the Troy-Canton area. You're going to see a lot of land going out for the pipeline. A lot of trees are going out. We have a company called Craftmaster down in Towanda that uses a lot of logs. And those trees, I thought they were going down to that company, but they were not. They went to the conservation district and said, hey, look, can you get the trees coming back to Craftmaster, because we have 900 employees that we're going to lay off because the trees are not coming down, they're just burying them. So that's another issue that we are seeing with the timber. This is kind of an important picture. This is 5 pads, 1 impoundment pond in the Leroy area. The mountain behind it is the state game lands. The state negotiated an agreement where they cannot do any surface disturbance. That means they're not going to put well pads on there. So the farmers that are butting up to the state game lands will experience all the disturbance. You're seeing a lot of pads going in, well sites, and the laterals are going into state game lands. So where the laterals are going, that's where the royalties are going. So the farmers are going to experience the disturbance, no royalties, it'll go to the state. So that's, if you live near the state game lands, think about it. You want someone to say something?
In reference to all of the loss of land too, one of my biggest concerns is what is this going to do to erosion and sedimentation? Where is the water going to run off? My daughter's land happens to be around where all these 5 pads are. And I wonder if her house is going to be washed away in the next big rainstorm.
This is my neighbor's property. They sold their cows in May. The rig 31 is drilling right there. He's an older farmer, and I didn't blame him. I can't blame him. He sold his cows. But the thing that was kind of sad is he's thinking he's going to get royalties as soon as the rig goes down and they frack it. But in reality, there's no pipeline in our area. And the farmers don't even understand that. So,
the other thing is we have been experiencing a decrease in farming in our area, which concerns me. On my road, this happens to be my road. There are actually on my small 6 miles, there were 4 farms. 2 of them have already gone out. But there is a definite decrease in agriculture in our area already, for one reason or another, related to the gas industry.
okay, this is my baby. This is a social issue. We are I go down to the bars, check these guys out. Hey, they're from Texas, they got money. We see a lot of women taking off for the Texans. And did you hear why? Everything is bigger in Texas. At least I woke some of you up. Okay, community risk. This is the traffic volume. Like we said, this is the picture. It's right behind us. I could never imagine the volume of traffic. That's what is beating up the roads. I wish, we went to the commissioners and said, look, if you guys are going to run water, impoundment ponds and fill them up, please, can you get them to drill on the other side? You're just pounding the crap out of these trucks, or these roads. And, have the activity spread out throughout the county. And they just don't seem to get that. At least maybe the roads would last a little longer.
I think one of the stories I want to tell with this is in my area right now, in my road, we're experiencing very high volume traffic. The township next to us, Litchfield, just authorized, 42 driveway permits, which means there's gas activity, and that's what they're going to start doing pads over there. I had very little volume of traffic on my road. Now I'm experiencing, this is a low estimate, 250 trucks a day coming past the front of my house. My husband woke up this morning saying, it's Sunday, I think maybe I can get the cows across the road so we can bring them closer to the barn. And then we saw 15 trucks come down the road.
Oh dear.
When I made our opening statement about fractured communities, everybody wants to jump on the bandwagon about the environmental issues, the economic plus and gains. Nobody talks about the social issues. There is social issues going on right here. And this is a social issue that I want to address. The sign says, Dear God, our Lord, please save our town. I love my earthly home. It was a 1 6-inch pipeline leak, 1 diesel fuel spill, 1 hydraulic fluid spill, and there's 2 broken hearts. Our home of our grandchildren. Please help. I ask in Jesus' name, Collins Road, Oakey Acres Farm, Bruce D. Kennedy. This is in East Smithfield. This is about, there's pumps, hydraulic pumps, that pump the water, the above ground water lines to help frack, okay? When they laid those pumps out, it was on an uneven area. The hydraulic fluid leaked. When they were putting and installing the above ground water line, these are really thick pipes, I couldn't believe, but the equipment scratched and it opened it up. Okay, so that came out and leaked. He lost 2 heifer calves. They sent them to Penn State. All they would say, it was stress related. That's all they said. What the 2 broken hearts are about is his wife and himself. He bought his grandfather's farm to leave to his grandchildren, and it happened on his grandfather's farm. To make it's a long story, what happened was they drug the pipes, they drug the equipment off. It was a staging area that he did not agree on. The gas company did agree to fix the roads, but the township took it in their hands and is suing Bruce for the repair. This is in our local newspapers. If you would like to do some archive digging, go ahead. It's a $500 bill. It's not about the amount, it's about the principle. Because of the treatment that he received, what happened was 5 state cops came to him when he was sitting by the sign. He felt threatened. So he thought he would sit in the town square with his sign. 5 state cops came. They threatened to taser him. His son-in-law witnessed the whole thing. They handcuffed him, admitted him in the mental psychiatric ward in Robert Packer Hospital. He signed himself in so he could, he signed himself in because they told him if you sign yourself in, you can get out in 5 days, in 3 days, but he stayed there 5. They diagnosed him in 3 days as being bipolar. If you are If you know anything about medical history or doing whatever, you cannot diagnose anybody in 3 days for being bipolar. It fractured the community because he was a pillar of the community. He was on the school board. He represented everything to the community. He's an older gentleman. And it's divided because now the township, people are fighting with the township, drop the charges against this man. I fear that those supervisors are going to lose their job. I know those supervisors, I like those supervisors, and I like Bruce. I don't want to see the community fractured anymore.
I just have one thing to add to that story, and I think it's important, is in the beginning of this whole process, Bruce was very much for the gas industry. Bruce signed an agreement, signed a pipeline agreement, but he has learned through the dealings with them that they lied to him. And he has what he calls the 3 Ds. Correct me right, it's deceit, deception, and desecration. And that's how he describes the gas industry now.
Now we're going to visit the community risk. The health concerns, they all come back to the water issues, the soil issues, and the air issues. I don't know if you guys are familiar what slurry pits are, manure pits. This one is empty. It is not an active farm. But this, if you look in it really close, this is a residual waste, and they're dumping it in the slurry pit. Our conservation district was not even aware of it. During the flooding, we were worried that this was going to spill over. That was one of our concerns. So we were looking at soil contamination at that point. This is Truman Burnett's, where the wetlands are. The gas industry, he did not lease his property in the beginning. He had 125 acres. It is a private pond. The well, that was his neighbor, this goes back to neighbors, what you do. And the neighbor's pad was 200 feet from his private pond. There was 200,000 gallons of frac fluid that spilled into the private pond. They did not contact Truman. Then 2 weeks later, 500 gallons of hydrochloric acid was spilled in the pond. There is a lawsuit. I did bring his lawsuit if anybody wanted to look at it. The problem is it happened in March of 2009. It spills over into a wetlands which feeds into a tributary going down into Granville Summit, and now the residents down there are experiencing high volumes of barium in their water. So we don't know where it's coming from. It could be coming back from them. A lot of people don't talk about the air contamination yet, but that's the one thing that will affect everybody. It's not selective, like your water contamination. This is a temporary compressor station on the Bargeson well site, and you can see the emissions coming off there.
This is dust that comes off of a fracking operation, and if any of you have been around it, my daughter's had a fracking operation going on to her next door home, 500 feet from her house. For approximately 2 weeks, she couldn't take the kids outside. She couldn't have her windows open. This was in the middle of the summer. The dust and the lime that comes off and the sand that comes off of a fracking operation makes it unbearable to be outside when it's happening. In some cases. I think we discussed this of the potential contamination of food. Again, this is one of my problems and issues. I worry about this, not only with the water and contamination, but with the air and the soil. I've worked hard and long on my farm to keep my soil free of contaminants.
I'm going to tell another story. I know a farmer. He had 80 cows die this past February. He destroyed them. He burnt them. He didn't know what to do. And so he unloaded the rest of the beef into the local market. He did not want to admit that there was a water problem. that's why I'm worried. I'm worried about our milk, I'm worried about our beef, I'm worried about our vegetables, because vegetables are down in Texas. With the injection wells, is it coming back up into our vegetables? How about in Nebraska? There is gas exploration going there. That's where our grains are. So I do have a question about that. I don't have a lot of answers about it. It's just something that I'm thinking in the back of my mind because I'm a farmer. And talking to the farmers, I know what they're doing because, you know, they got to save that farm. You know, you're living on a shoestring budget, and you better unload it and not say a thing. And I see that happening. Okay, next one.
This is in particular to landowners, not only farmers. We see a lot of properties that are getting landlocked by virtue of where they place the pad. And in most cases, if you haven't negotiated appropriately in your lease, once you sign that lease, that gas company can put it in right behind your barn, if that's where they want to put it. The Vargason well pad, that's exactly what happened. They put it right behind their barn. That family had to sell their cows because they could no longer get their cows out of the barn and into the pasture. We'll show that after that, but this is a very important and crucial to know because the industry can landlock you. They can landlock you with a driveway access. They can take a driveway access way back into the woods, and then you can't get from one side of your land to the other. The timber value, I think Carol spoke to that before. You need to negotiate that in your lease. People are actually, the one neighbor of ours, he had a pad put on his property in the middle of timber that hadn't been timbered, I guess Covington's, for probably 40 years. He got no monetary return for the value of that timber. It just went down, and in some cases, if it isn't written in your agreement, the industry can take that good timber and just shred it, just chip it.
Yeah, I want to talk about the agriculture part. The less feed, we're losing bedding, we're losing we're also seeing high costs of shipping our milk. I pay 8 cents a hundred now, increase, just to keep my milk hauler from going to haul water. We just had a hauler quit, so there's a group of farmers now scrambling for a hauler. The feed, the reason why we have less feed is because of the land use going out of agricultural use going into the pads. Also, now I'm grinding up the hay that I shouldn't be grinding up for bedding because I don't have sawdust. The sawdust is going into the socks, and so is the wood. So, you know, we do see that. You guys might think it's minor, but it's a lot to me. Okay. Again, we already talked about the tourism and the dead zones, so we'll just keep on moving. This is a personal risk. This is Michael Phillips's water. His first water well was contaminated, so they drilled him a new well, and his second water well was worse than the first one. This is water coming out of the second water well. They placed the filtration system on the second well, and we have, you want to talk on that a little bit? Okay. This is my water. It has changed 6 times. I don't know what's going on with my water. All I know is I have 8 wells in a mile radius of my home. And what I did is, this is coming out of the tap, and the other one was bottled water. You know, the activity on the one well is when I see the most action. So, you know, I'm hoping that it's not contaminated. I don't want to cry wolf yet. I don't know. So, I'm praying that it's not contaminated. Okay, another personal risk. The contamination costs. We never thought of this. Increase in electric bills. The people on Paradise Road, their bills averaged about $120. Michael Phillips's went from $120 to $420. His neighbors went up to $520. You have to heat the water in the water buffalo.
And electricity is also needed to move it from the system inside the house because the water buffalo is generally kept either in your garage or outside.
the filtration systems. If you have a number of carbon filters on that filtration system, it could average $500 a month. That is the cost to the landowner. Water testing expenses. Chesapeake does test for DEP, but you also have to have independent water testing done. The independent water testers that we have experienced are between $800 to $1,000. Medical bills. The people we have talked to ended up with rashes. Some have had some other issues. Some have had major surgeries. And so that also is calculated in. The biggest thing that I realize is the loss of property value. After your water is contaminated, you admit that. Your lawyer will have you appraise your property. The Phillips's house was worth $395,000. It's appraised at $39,000. Their neighbor's property is appraised at $8,000. The Vargason home is, they just said that they lost 80% of the property value. Okay, now.
This is some of the unexpected property encumbrances, and this is one of my issues about the lying and deceiving that the industry is doing and the things that they're doing behind our back. The first one is the mechanics lien, and Carol's going to speak to that.
Okay, when we started digging down to the Tawana courthouse, my neighbor, the reason why we did it is our neighbors were receiving mechanics liens in their mailbox, and they said, what's this? So what it is when you sign a lease, you become a approved partner with the gas company. You become partners. So if your partner decides not to pay, and it's usually the driller, it's the directional drilling, it's Compass Directional Drilling is what is issuing this mechanics lien, and there's another one called downhole directional drilling. And some of these are between $90,000 to $269,000 mechanic liens. If the partner, your prudent partner, the gas company, that chooses not to pay that lien, it's charged against the landowner, the one that has the well on it. In the state of Pennsylvania, if you have a mechanic, that mechanic lien has to be satisfied within 2 years. If it is not, it goes bankrupt. Come to find out, I did a little more digging. Compass Directional Drilling is a subsidiary company with Chesapeake. So what holds the value of your property is your royalty interest. So whoever holds that mechanics lien is going after your remaining royalty interest.
Okay, go ahead. The next one that we uncovered in the courthouse was subordination, non-disturbance, and atonement agreements. Now, these were agreements that when I worked for New York Life, the large commercial lenders would require upon people they were lending the money to these agreements to ensure their debt. So I'll give you an idea. Subordination, non-disturbance, and atonement agreement addresses the priority of the rights of the tenants and the lenders. It is insurance that if a property owner defaults on their mortgage, that the gas industry will not be affected. They will not be asked to cease operations. They're worried about business. The banks are lending them large amounts of money, are probably requiring these agreements as a condition to lending. And the reason why this comes before the next one is because that's the next document we uncovered, which was an open-end mortgage on approximately, I would say, over 1,000 pieces of property in our area, that the industry put a $5 billion open-end mortgage on their property. Now, bear in mind, it is only for the subsurface royalty interests. It is for the pipelines. It's for their pads. But there are very few banks that will give me an answer as to whether or not all of these things that we've just said, mechanics liens, subordination agreements, open-end mortgages, are going to cloud the title of people's property to make them unable to sell it if they so desire. The next personal risk is there's no guarantee that all your land will create royalties. We've had several people that we know that have 6, sometimes less than an acre in a production unit. We know one gentleman who has almost 1,000 acres, and he is generating $1.20 a year. He has less than an acre in a unit. In Pennsylvania, and I'm not up on New York State law, we have no regulation over production units. The industry can put them anywhere they want to. You could be blessed with the well pad and get less. They would have to give you the well pad, so let's give them 15 acres. Maybe. No, in Vargasons they only gave 6. 6 of that, they had the well pad, so they only got, I think from that production unit, $400 a month. And they had the pad on their property. So there's no guarantee that all your land will be in a production unit. And the other interesting feature in our state is the industry can change a production unit whenever they want to. The Vargason unit was changed 22 times. They can take you in and out of units at their will. Production costs, who verifies the deductions? We've done a lot of research from operator to operator, and there is a big variance in how much each of them get from one to the other. We found that Talisman pays the best. Chesapeake is on the bottom of the list right now. And I think Carol has some figures on that.
We tried to do a comparison apples to apples. We took a Talisman well site. The only difference was the Talisman production unit was a 700 unit and the Chesapeake unit was a 128 acre unit. The same amount of land was in it, it's 8 acres in both of them. The PSIs were the same, the whole deal. We asked the landowner to show us their royalty check, and Talisman was paying for the 8 acres in the unit $4,000 a month. In the Chesapeake unit, it was $400 a month. It is about the production cost as well, so be careful when you're lining yourself up with who you're going to sign the leases with. You know, the gas companies, you know, people complain about Talisman, and some people complain about Chesapeake. Some people love Chesapeake, some people love Talisman. So, you know, I wish you the best on that one.
I think we've already discussed that one.
Yeah, go on. Okay. Okay. This is, do you know how to operate that little pointer thing?
Oh,
Yeah. Okay. Instead of me running up there, show them that little dot. You guys. Yeah, that is the well site. All right. And right below that, the corner, that's where the barn was. That's the pasture. They drilled behind the pasture, so they had to sell their cows. And then, this is back in 2008, so we still had the clean and green issue, and I'm not going to explain it, just that the money, cow money had to pay back this rollback tax that we have in Pennsylvania. The problem was, they saw the disturbance. That was also a fracking farm. Afterwards, they used that as a staging unit to frack other wells around the area. So they experienced all the traffic. That road runs between their house and their barn. Their neighbor generates more money than they do. The land around it, they chose not to put their land in it. The yellow line up in the backside there, that's his pasture. He can't get to the pasture because the way the pad was developed. Let's take, this is my 100 acres. They normally, what we're seeing is they're putting the pad right here. And you're losing 15 to 20 acres back here. So you might want to discuss that in your leasing when you're doing that, that you have the right to distinguish how that pad is going to be put in and where it's going to be put in. So that's one of the problems we've seen. Go ahead. Okay. Politicians again. Here we go. The monies received from the gas industry has influenced the decisions made by them. Again, I think Lori demonstrated that very well. They are threatened. I want you guys to remember, well, when we called down to Houston, Texas to talk to some lawyers, they said the power comes in the vote. Hopefully you guys will learn that sooner than they did. If they're not going to work for you, then vote them out. You know, I don't know what else to say about the politicians. I just know that when Carolyn and I, 3 years ago, were learning about this, we went to Susquehanna County. The League of Women Voters was putting on a presentation. We watched one woman talk about her water being destroyed. And our senator, Senator Jean Yaw, said there was no water being contaminated in Dimick. Carolyn and I had no clue what was going on. So we asked for a tour of Dimick, because keep in mind, we're from Bradford County. This is all new. So then we asked Senator Yaw to please come with us, because we wanted to go and see through his eyes what he was seeing. We didn't know. We wanted to know exactly what was going on. This conversation went on for a month and a half, and then he said absolutely not. The lady that we were working with, that was working with Senator Yaw, was Stacy Bellows. Now Stacy Bellows works for Chesapeake. So since then, we have found out what's going on in Dimick. But it speaks for itself. And now Carolyn is going to talk about DEP.
Another thing we've come to realize is our agencies are not working for us. The DEP is not working for the people, even though we're funding them. They're closely working with the industry. And I wonder, and this is a question that I'm not going to answer, why we continue to allow this and what we can do to change this. But I do have some documentation on this, because I do like to validate everything with a little documentation. This happens to be a letter from the DEP to the Phillips. On 7/13/2010, they complained that their water was suspected to be contaminated. DEP collected samples on the 15th and the 21st, which was pretty good. This letter did not respond back to them until October the 1st. So do the math, figure how long that family had to wait before they found out whether their water was contaminated or not, before the industry decided to give them water or not. What happened in the interim was they had a new well drilled, and I think Carol spoke to that. But I have some terminology on their letter that I'd like to read that's kind of important. This one says, the department investigation indicates that gas well drilling has impacted your home water supply. Okay? And it says the department is continuing to work with Chesapeake in order to resolve this matter. In our understanding that Chesapeake has already replaced your water supply by drilling a new water well, the one that was contaminated more than the original one. Once this well is fully developed, we will schedule to sample this water to ensure compliance with our regulations. So I ask of the people in here, would this be acceptable to you if it was your water that was contaminated? I certainly would not live in a house for a month and a half with my children and my family to get a decision from the DEP.
We were at Mike's and Jonna's house yesterday. The water truck, just for the tractor trailer to come up there, is $217. And then they received a bill because Chesapeake did not pay it, the water bill, from July to the 1st of October. That water bill is $7,400. Yesterday, the truck hauler, which also hauls milk, told them that they will not deliver the water every other day anymore. They're going to deliver every 4 days, because Cabot has set a precedence. Chesapeake will follow. Okay, next.
Okay, yep, got it. This is another one of my, I've been doing a little research of the annual reports, and I'll have to tell you that at one time, and it happened to be in 2009 because I was lucky, I was a Chesapeake shareholder, so I did get a Chesapeake shareholder report because I believed in America's future. This happens to be on page 21 of the report, and when the industry says that this whole operation is safe, I want you to listen to what they told their shareholders. The natural gas and oil business involves a variety of operating risks, including the risk of fire, explosions, blowouts, pipe failure, abnormally pressured formations, and environmental hazards such as oil spills, natural gas leak, ruptures or discharges of toxic gases. If any of these should occur, Chesapeake could suffer substantial losses due to the injury of or loss of life, severe damage to or destruction of property, natural resources, and equipment, pollution or other environmental damage, cleanup responsibilities, regulatory investigation, and penalties, and suspension of operations, which is last. This is another one that really got to my heart. Our horizontal and deep drilling activities, which is what we're experiencing now, involve greater risk of mechanical problems than vertical and shallow drilling operations. Okay? Next page. Chesapeake maintains a $50 million control of well policy that ensures against certain sudden and accidental risks associated with drilling, completing, and operating of our wells. There is no assurance that this insurance will be adequate to cover all losses or exposure to liability. Chesapeake also carries a comprehensive general liability umbrella policy. This is in relation to the workman's compensation. While we believe these policies are customary in the industry, they do not provide complete coverage against all operating risks. This is the very same company that came into my living room and told me it was safe. They told their shareholders something different. And the interesting thing about this is I researched the 2010 annual report. This all came out. What happened between 2009 and 2010 that made this operation safer? I don't think anything. What I think, and what my belief is that they started moving closer to the East Coast, closer to the people that invest and that might have, like me, shareholders, shares in Chesapeake, and land, so they could no longer say those things. That's my take. We come to our solutions, so go ahead.
Oh, finally.
All right. The solutions that we suggest
Waiting so long.
is that we require the residents to set a pace, not the gas company. What we mean by that is they came in and they threatened us, whether to sign an agreement, sign a lease. For example, the older folks, if you don't sign a lease, we're going to take you to jail, we're going to sue you, etc.
Oh, really?
That's what happened. Set the pace, because don't allow them to just go drilling at what we're seeing. They're drilling just to lock up the leases because they're starting to expire. There is no infrastructure, there's no pipeline in our area. When will we see the royalties? They told us that there was going to be 3,000 to 6,000 people coming in to weld the pipes. That was back in March. We haven't seen anybody. Nobody's putting pipelines in. When are we going to see the royalties? You locked up our leases. When are we going to see the royalties? So maybe it's time we just set the pace back and find out what the risks really are. We talked about working with your local municipalities to get any regulations in place. I've been to enough New York State shows. They said that, we're ahead of the game. And all I can tell you is DEC is watching what DEP is doing and how much money they're making. When they issued that $1 million fine, DEC watched DEP take that money. That fine did not go back to the Phillipses or the people that experienced the Leroy blowout to help them out. It went right to that agency. And that's what I see with your agency. That's what they're learning. Learn the laws that are governing the oil and gas. Make sure that they are adequate before they are allowed to start. I realize that New York State has different laws than Pennsylvania, and I'm not going to be a genius on it. I don't know how your laws are working for you. So I just know our laws are not working for us right now. I wish you the best.
Thank you very much.
Make sure the laws you have are being enforced. And one of the things that we found written into the Pennsylvania law was that the DEP can require all sorts of logs from the industry. They're required to give them drilling logs, mud logs, compositional logs, but the DEP is not requiring that. But within the law it is. So you have to make sure that your agencies are getting the information that they need so that if there is a problem, you'll have that information. I think these all speak for themselves. I think the last is never feel pressured or rushed into signing any agreement. And I don't know how many times, I heard, I don't know whether it was a laugh or a snicker, I don't know, but when we talk about them bullying, they bully. And if you don't believe that, you've never been in a room with them. I've recently, I guess within the past year, I've been bullied about 3 times by them. My husband's at least twice, and all of them were for agreements. They come to you, first they ask you nicely, and they come and they never announce their arrival. They catch you off guard. I'm speaking of the landmen. And they approach you as if they've known you for your whole life. Then they ask you to sign it. And when you say you want time to think about it, they say, well, ma'am, this is the deal for today, it won't hold tomorrow. Don't ever feel pressured to sign. And I will tell you, they've also threatened lawsuits on us. You can't not sign this. They've told us that we have eminent domain in Pennsylvania when we don't have eminent domain. And there are lots of people who have been prey to this and have signed because they feel if they don't sign, they have no choice. And working with your neighbors and community, that's what we're here today for, guys.
Oh, that's a lie.
I think Lori spoke to updating the zoning. Unfortunately, in our township, the township that we live in, we don't have zoning. So it's going to probably take us 2 to 3 years to get zoning in. I was one of the people 10 years ago that said, I don't want zoning, because I don't want anybody telling me to do what on my property. Now I'm sorry. Set up support centers. I can't tell you how important that is to have a safe place for people to come and talk. We've run into so many people who won't come forward and say their water is contaminated because of the things that are happening with the DEP, because of the things that are happening in the media, and because they have no choice. And learn on what's going on in other states. We do that all the time. Okay. This is one of the ways in which the industry is selling the play, and it's patriotism. They tell you that it's your patriotic duty to sign that lease. That it's going to allow the United States to be energy independent. That was one of the reasons why I fell for it. And I believe them, but I've since learned, like I said before, and we have proof and documentation from the industry that they're going to sell it to China. This is, again, JFK's inaugural address was used, and the latest one being used by Penn State is military sacrifice. That the fact that if we use this oil here, we won't have to send our troops overseas anymore. They are also using sacrificial lamb, that we in the northeast region of Pennsylvania have to be the sacrificial lamb for the rest of the world. And this has a certain appeal to the religious community. And this is Aubrey McClendon's latest play. He's calling the Marcellus Shale play a magnificent American treasure.
Which it is. Right.
And while many of you believe that a treasure isn't meant to be squandered, isn't meant to be exploited, and I don't look at the same way the gas industry is treating this gas play as a treasure.
Why are you so angry?
And these are our community solutions. It all comes back to the community working together. I'm not here to tell anybody what to do with their property. And I would like you to read the definition of a community, which is a body of people having common rights, privileges, or interests, living in the same place under the same laws and regulations. That's the end.
Question. Question, please.
That's nice. Oh, we are waiting for it.
Okay, this, Kathy is going to bring the mic to you. She's going to hold it. Please do not take the mic out of her hand.
Oh, really?
She's going to hold it for you. I think you can probably say what we need to say in about a minute. If it goes over a minute, we're going to kind of pull the plug.
During this question and answer time, the same rules apply. Everybody's going to stay in their seats. If there's any disorderly conduct, you will be escorted from the theater. Please remember that.
You ready?
1, 2, 3, go.
Listen, I appreciate the fact that you ladies came down here and did such a great job of a one-sided story. And you did. You put 4 points up that were good for drilling, and then 40 pages that were bad, and that's really a shame. And then the statement you made about soldiers at the end there. I'm a Vietnam vet, and I'm going to tell you something right now. My daughter served in Iraq, and we were in Afghanistan because of a $50 billion pipeline being put in right now. And so soldiers are over there dying for oil for you and for me. And we have natural gas, which is a gift that belongs here in our state, in our country, and we don't need people from Pennsylvania coming here telling us. I have a minute. We don't need people from Pennsylvania coming here telling us what to do in our backyard because you're dissatisfied with the lousy way you approached it in your own backyard.
I agree, sir. You're right. I don't think we should fight for oil and gas. Maybe we should nationalize the gas. So
We are
the
not
federal
in Russia
government
anymore.
will market the gas, not the gas industry, because I would love to have the natural gas stay right here in the United States.
That is not Russia.
And I too agree with you, but you get those gas industries, and when you do, you call me to write on that dotted line that every drop of gas that comes out of this ground is going to stay in this country.
Why should I? We need some of our money back from China.
Hey, wait. We were just directed that please have them state their name. Okay, thank you.
I'm sorry, Frack Man Furman.
Nice to meet you, Frack.
What are the disadvantages to not leasing?
What?
What are the disadvantages to not leasing? Okay, let me give you my personal story. Okay, we've been at many, many meetings where the industry comes out and says, you just go ahead and lease. Well, actually, it depends on the size property you have, but you don't lease. We're just going to suck that gas right out from underneath you.
Can't do that in New York.
They can. New York State is different, right?
But that's why you shouldn't talk about here. Right?
Why can't I talk about my experience?
Because you're a PA citizen.
In any case, they said that to me. They also, when my lease was about to terminate in September, they gave me a phone call, and they asked me personally, they said, do you want to sign for an extension? We'll give you $1,000 an acre for a year extension. I said, I have to think about it. We went through the conversation at the same time, and at the same time I was working with the 4-H, and I was negotiating some I wasn't, my fellow leaders were negotiating some money from Chesapeake for the 4-H. That man from Chesapeake said to me on that same telephone conversation, he said, maybe if you sign, we'll get that money for your 4-H group too. I said, I don't mix my home with that kind of business. I said, you're not going to do that to me. So then he went, because he knew he wasn't getting me to sign, he said, you know something? Nobody's ever going to develop your property and you'll never see a dime of royalties. I said, okay, I guess I'll have to live with that. So what are the risks? I don't know. Are they drilling underneath your land? In our state, we don't know. Can I see the directional drilling log to make sure that they're not drilling under my land? I don't know. So the risks are of not drilling. You're still getting the potential force pulling. Okay, in our area, they are doing force pulling of sorts. They'll put you in a production unit in the smack in the middle of it, and you're not leased. How they get that drill bit to go around you, I don't know, but
Your minute's up.
they're doing that. We've looked at production units. We have them up here where they actually do that, so they can include you inside of a unit and you don't get any royalties. So that's a possibility too. And you stand to lose, get contaminated anyway as a result of anything. For me, it's peace of mind. There might be a risk. I can't say that you don't have a risk.
I want to know if the jobs are so poor down there. My name is Sandra. I'm from here. I want to know why is it that Bradford County has the lowest unemployment rate in all of PA if the jobs are so horrible and the gas companies are drawing away from the other businesses? Why is that? I mean, we have no jobs here. We have no place for people to work. And I think having jobs would be much better than having nothing.
Yeah, right on, yeah.
Well, where do you work? I work right here in town.
You work for Energy and Death?
No, I work right here in town.
What difference would that make?
Okay, I just want to address that. I never said that the unemployment rate wasn't down, and I know the industry uses that a lot, and that is absolutely correct. What I'm saying is there's more jobs than there are people.
That'd be awesome.
It's awesome for the person looking for the job, but it's not awesome for the small business who depends on a workforce at a lower rate because they can't afford a higher rate to survive. So that's where it's affecting it. I didn't say that it wasn't bad to have all the jobs. What I said was the businesses are suffering as a result of not being able to complete their workforce.
I know what small businesses like. Let me tell you what, because we have small businesses here. So I know what small businesses like. I know how hard it is to find employees. It'd be nice to be able to give those employees
If you can't
jobs.
find
We're laying
employees,
off.
if you can't
We're
find
laying people
employees
off
and they
because
are
we
looking
don't
for
have
jobs,
work.
excuse me.
No, you're the one that shook my hand and threw my hand earlier, so excuse me, lady.
Thank you for coming.
We can get Carolyn if you'd like.
You know
No.
what? I'd just like to say one more thing while everybody's
Excuse
listening.
me, that was
Go to
so-
Bradford County yourself. See it for yourself.
Right.
Don't just take these two ladies' words for it. Go see it. People are
Yes.
happy down there. They're thriving. There are jobs.
And we are not from Energy and Depth, we are landowners. And we are not called by Chesapeake to come here either.
Okay. Now,
Something else?
Actually, I called
I
them.
want to go back to the jobs. The people that have jobs, we even talked to the workers, and you know, they're complaining about the housing. The housing, they cannot afford it. That's why we are having more
I thought they were all in jail, isn't that
the
the
man camps. Because the gas companies will pay for the land, or the housing, food, and laundry. They do not get paid like they should be getting paid. So, yeah, the jobs are there. Are they great jobs? That's in question.
They're better than the no jobs we have.
Yeah.
Well, Sandy just said that she has a hard time hiring.
Yeah, why don't you go to Sandy's for a job?
She lives too far
Next,
away.
next question. We're not going to debate this anymore.
My name is John Bromberg, and I want to thank you gals from the bottom of my heart.
I'm leaving this bullshit.
What you did it was really special. And as far as sorry that the ignoramuses didn't see this as special, that you gave them some important information. And I put you gals in the same realm as Daniel Ellsberg. You are ambassadors of truth, and I salute you.
All I know is for the people that did come that are considered pro-gas, I just hope you do take one thing away. We are not fighting with you. We were in your shoes. And when I come back here, I want to talk to you when they're doing it in your backyard. That's all.
I have to ask something.
My name is Jerry Mann. We made a little mistakes over in PA, I'm pretty sure of that. But, practice makes perfect also, There are a couple of wells, yes, they were contaminated. There's no doubt about it, but, a lot of things happened over there too, which were accidents. When they had broken equipment, and that did happen right along. Now, when we do a job, sometimes we get a defective item, which happened over there. But you can't blame the whole industry for that because a couple of wells were contaminated. But, that's about it. And again, we need work. Work, and work. And we don't have it over here. You used to have 5 bars over here in this town. Guess what? They ain't one open here anymore. Because nobody can afford to have a cocktail.
I don't know if there was a question in there. I understand what you're saying, and I can appreciate people wanting employment. I don't say that I can't. I farm. We don't make a lot. We get by. There are times when I've been out and I've gotten a job. I was a rural carrier. I worked at different types of jobs, but my big question is, it may be a temporary fix to a much larger problem.
I have friends that have received $90,000 a month. I don't want to take that away from you guys. I have been told, I haven't seen the royalty checks for $240,000 a month. If you get it, good. I'm happy for you. But there's no guarantee. That's the message I'm trying to say to you. What is the guarantee? Did you guys get it in writing? I would love to see your leases because I doubt that there's a guarantee that all your land will generate this much money. It's a select few. That's what we're trying to tell you guys. And the other thing is, I think about this commercial. It's, they put on there the going to the ballpark, $100, buying the balls, $50. But my child's life, my community's life, and way of life is priceless.
So you starved to death?
No. No, I never did. I have never starved on my farm. But you might.
No,
at the end.
I have a farm.
You got a nice smile.
Next. Hi, my name is Margaret Lattis. I'm from Otsego County, town of Middlefield. I had the opportunity this past summer to work at one of the sustainable Otsego booths at Otsego County Fair. I met a young man named Joe from Bradford County. He was born and raised there. His family were farmers. He was probably in his mid-30s about, with a young family, a wife and a young child. Joe was unable to farm anymore. So he went, because his farm got fracked and they couldn't move the cows and everything you were just speaking of. Anyway, he has to support his young family, so he went to work briefly for one of the gas companies. His job was to rip labels off of chemical bags that go into the fracking fluid on the premise that is they have a copyright protection, and not that they didn't want the public to know what was in it, but that they didn't want the public to know what was in it because it's under copyright or whatever. Anyway, Joe lasted 4 months with this company and ended up working back on a dairy farm. They ended up moving to the town of Guilford, New York, he and his young family, where fracking is now imminent and it's chasing him. He was in tears telling me this story. This is a nice young guy. So I heard this young woman say that the people down there are thriving. Not everyone's happy with it. And my question for you, Carol, is would you do it again if you had a chance to sign a lease?
Well, I'm gonna make you mad. Our lease expired August 29th. And if we do have a chance, we're pretty much going to be forced to do it. And yes, I'm going to sign a lease again because my water has changed. Claude is 60 years old. If I don't have a milk market, I can't sell my cows. My property value at least drops 80%. That was our retirement. If you know any farmers, that's what you do. That's your retirement. So you lose all that. My plan B is to lease again so I have enough money to get out of Dodge because I know my cows will be quarantined. We have no business. So that's what I'm looking at. As you know, I will negotiate the best lease I can because the neighbors around me, there's about 1,000 acre around me that is not leased, and you know we're going to work together on it. I'm not going to skip out on them, but it's about survival. You're right, it is about survival. And you know, if you asked me that question in 2006, knowing what I know, and our neighbors were working together, we probably would not sign that lease.
For me, I'm in a different situation. We have two parcels. One is out of a lease and one is still in a lease. The one that's in a lease is involved in litigation with the gas company. It's in reference to the Minimum Royalty Act and the fact that they can deduct production costs twice. So I have two leases. I have one property that doesn't have anything on it, encumbrances, and does. And for right at the moment, I don't know what I'm going to do with that property that doesn't, because it's feeling kind of good so that I own that land again. To have that land taken away from me and understand what they did with it and how they negotiated it around was kind of upsetting to me. And now that I know I own to the center of the earth, I'm not sure I want to give it up yet.
Sadly, for those people...
Your name.
My name is Edward Lease. My wife and I own property in City Center, Delaware County. Sadly, for the people in Pennsylvania who early, in the rush to drill, signed leases that were less than favorable to them, New York State has learned from this. I've seen the pile of pages of the SGEIS about 8 inches thick, so that we will have the most stringent regulations in the nation. The other point I would like to make regards the exportation of gas. Shame, shame on this country if we don't accelerate the transition from oil, which we get from unfriendly sources, in many cases, to natural gas with its attendant decrease in emissions. And it's right here. So let's get after our government, the administration to act, to make this transition to this natural gas, which is ours.
Not yet.
Okay, the only comment you do have a lot of regulations getting in place. We have, like Carolyn referred to DEP, we have the regulation in place that they can ask for drilling logs, the gamma ray logs, all the logs that you need, and the composition report. But DEP chose to only ask for the drilling log. You need the fluid logs, the mud fluid logs, so you can prove the isotopes, and if there is a contamination, which well or how many wells contaminated that water. Will DEC, because of all the regulations, will they implement them once it's in place? That's another question. I hope you guys force them to do so.
I have one more comment in relation to your signing good leases. It is good that you are behind us and that you got more education. I think you did, but if you begin to understand the industry and look at it as much as we have, you may think you have everything that's safeguarding in your lease, but I can guarantee you that they're 10 steps ahead of you. The other thing that's important for you that you've signed a lease, if you consider going into another contract with them, bear in mind that anything you sign after you sign the lease supersedes the lease. And the industry has a very good way of sticking in stuff that kind of negate what you signed in your lease. So be very careful of anything you agree to sign later on, even though they say there's nothing wrong.
Hi, this is Mark Dunow. I have two different questions. The first is, I was surprised you didn't bring up the Duke study, which found that 50% of wells within a kilometer of the end of a frac had severe methane migration. And I think that, which is it's the only peer-reviewed study, everyone's talking about science, it's the only peer-reviewed study that shows that the Marcellus gas is coming up from the Marcellus in such a way that half the wells within a kilometer of a frac have severe methane migration. Now, if you want, I personally don't want to find that my water resource is a source of explosive gas, and I was just wondering why you all didn't bring that up, because I think it's the only peer-reviewed study we have, and it's kind of devastating.
I thank you for bringing it up. Obviously, we can't bring everything, but my issue, and I'm not trying to minimize methane migration. You have to understand, from my standpoint, that that's what the industry wants us to focus on. My concern is if there is a pathway for the methane, and that methane is of the type that is coming from the Marcellus Shale, which they have already established in many cases. If it's coming from that level in the ground, then what else is going to come along?
Well, that's exactly my point, because the whole way they've been selling it is there's no way it can come up. And right now, there's only two good explanations. One is there is a pathway, or two, the casings are wrong. And just one last point. That woman said that the SGIS is perfect, or the man said it. Let me say there's a reason that they put the New York City watershed and the Syracuse watershed off limits, because what they're doing is divide and conquer. You know, as far as I'm concerned, the only SGIS that makes sense is one that protects rural water resources was the same as city water resources. But we deserve
What's your name? My name is Nia Grafik-Kiklak. I have to speak about this watershed problem. Commissioner Martins said the watershed is taken out for one reason and one reason only. You don't hold it right. Because it has an unfiltered water status. If it would be taken out, it could mean they have to get a filtration system in, and it would cost millions. That's why. And the other thing is, this is a philosophical issue, okay? You are on one side and the landowners in New York on another side. But don't tell us what to do. We have Joint Landowner Coalition of New York that are together working, informing their people. We have lawyers, and we know, I think, what we're doing. We are not stupid enough to think that everything is perfect. Nothing in life. Life is a risk, and that's what we are living with. We don't live with fear and constantly wanting to have an ideal world. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments.
Hi folks, Craig Stevens, Silver Lake Township, Pennsylvania. Sorry to be here if I'm not invited, but when I go to a class to learn from somebody, I don't learn from the brand new teacher. I want the person that has the information, they've lived through it. And let me tell you, I've got a lease on my property from Chesapeake. I have the pipeline going across my property, the laser pipeline. Matter of fact, I found out 2 weeks ago that it was the nightmare piece of property in the entire 33-mile line. Imagine that. They had nothing but trouble with it in our area. They blew up the creek in my backyard. They promised it would be no problem. That turned my beautiful, pristine creek from crystal clear to mud for 2 straight months. They took 2 months to get the drill underneath of the bore. On my 2,400 acre property, they blew out twice. They turned it into a giant mud bog, and the creek that comes from my property, doesn't matter if the mic goes out, I can be loud. It's been full of mud like Nestle's Quick for 2 straight months, and they're still trying to fix it now that they're done with the bore. Here's my problem, folks. I'm glad that EID people are here. It's good that we're here in the same room talking. I'm glad that the New York Landowners Coalition group is here. Why did they form? Just think to yourself. They formed because they realized that in other states people got ripped off that own land, so they're trying to protect themselves from the industry we're talking about. We're not concerned with what they do or don't want to do. That's up to them. They own the land. They can do whatever they want. Here's my stance. I have 2 flags flying on the front of my property. I have the Gadsden flag, which says, "Don't tread on me." That means leave me alone. The other flag is the Alamo flag. I changed it, though, recently when they talked about pulling the water from the people in Dimick. This is a challenge to the governor of the state of New York.
No commercials for Dimick.
Excuse me, I'm speaking. Thank you. I'm not talking about Dimick. I'm talking about anybody. This is anybody, folks. If your governor or any official in your state that you voted in is stating that your water is safe and you better go back on it and drink it, now it's not come and take it. It's come and drink it, Governor Corbett, Secretary Kranzer, Sandy Major, my representative. You come and bring your whole family and drink a 32-ounce glass of that water before you put those people back on it. And if you're not willing to do it, quit it today, because you're not a leader. Leaders lead by example. Okay?
He's practicing this in 5 years.
Oh, hi, okay.
Did you still have questions?
Yeah, why not? My name's Hilton Evans. I have a question for Carol. French, I believe. Okay. I think you said that you owned, there were 5 wells within 1 mile of your property?
There's 8 wells. I don't own them. There's 8 wells that are drilled and fracked around, within a mile of our property.
Okay, so you are getting no royalties from any of that?
No, we're not.
Why
No.
weren't you within that unit? Aren't you within the unit if you got 8 wells?
No, we're not in any of the units at all. Not at all. These were all drilled, some of these were drilled in January, all the way up to August. And when they created the unit, the one that's closest to me, about 3,000 feet from my house, they went south. Probably the closest unit was probably about 50 feet. But my neighbors on the east side of me, northeast of me, that are not leased, they put them in that production unit, almost like a forced pooling. Now that lessened their rights to negotiate a good lease. And that was my fear. There's another little thing that people don't understand. I live on the Shashequin-Litchfield border. And because of the investors in Litchfield, they could not extend the production units into Shashequin Township, and vice versa. The Shashequin production units could not extend into Litchfield. So that was another little safeguard that was going on as well. So, they went all the way around me. They did catch up a lot of leases, though, and but they didn't catch mine.
Okay, thank you. Now it answers a lot.
I'm sorry.
Hello, my name is Kenneth Fogarty. I'm from Shenango County, New York. And earlier it was asked, what is the disadvantage to not signing a lease? And I believe you gave the answer from the perspective of Pennsylvania. Now, in New York, we have what is called compulsory integration. Compulsory integration is an illegal taking of your property rights. You are given no choice in whether you want drilling on your property or not on your property. You are forced into accepting risks that other people in this audience said they were perfectly willing to live with. They think we live in a risk world that's driven by risks. Some of us would like not to have these risks, but we're forced into it. Now, that law will be challenged in New York State because it's clearly a trespass and an illegal taking. However, there is an advantage to remaining not signing the lease. Because in this law, which will be challenged again, the only ones who are listed as exempt from liability in the unit are those who did not sign a lease. so that if you sign a lease, you are then liable for pollution and damages to your neighbors. And by signing a lease, it will make you a laughingstock if you then went to court and tried to sue yourself for polluting your own property. So I would suggest that one should not sign these leases, and we will challenge this, of course. And we can go on and on with other things, but that came to my mind.
That's great.
My name is Shelley Northrup, and I'm from Bradford County. I know Carol and Carolyn, and I think they do a great job. They did try to share the impacts with everybody, whatever your position was. As a fellow living it every day, and you cannot emphasize enough traffic. And in fact, I too would think that natural gas is a cleaner fuel than, say, coal. But when you see the truck traffic associated with this, the diesel fumes, I'm pretty healthy respiratorily speaking, but the diesel fumes from being caught in traffic jams with tons of out-of-state license plate trucks and now vehicles bothers even my respiratory tract. So I feel for anybody who has family that has asthma. And the dust from the quarries is amazing. And I actually do have a question here. And that is, you have traveled around New York State and given various talks. Oh, and the housing issue, that cannot be. You really need to work on that. Because my coworkers are both leased and unleased, and they constantly complain that their family, their younger generation, cannot find affordable housing. The industry gives these workers stipends, so you cannot compete. It's you're talking $1,500 a month apartment or house. So my question is, since you have traveled around New York State, have they shared with you, the local municipalities shared with you what steps they would be taking to try to address these various local impact issues?
They have not shared anything, except they were trying to get some zoning in some areas. Can we take 2 more questions? I think it's getting about chore time. And just take 2 questions and let's wrap it up. I do want to again say thank you guys. You guys, we went out there and talked to you, and I thank you for coming. I hope it did help you. I mean, that's from the bottom of my heart.
Michael LeBron, and thanks both of you for a terrific presentation, helping bring some information before the community. 2 things. To the gentleman over here about compulsory integration, all the lawyers I've spoken to on this issue say the law is constitutional. That's not to say that it can't be overturned, but it's not as clear-cut as you suggest. It's going to be a rough hole. And then a question for the both of you. I was wondering if you were willing to talk about what's going on up here in the context of the Occupy Wall Street movement and the 99%ers.
I don't know much about it, except for I'm going to tell you that I do think this movement is going to escalate. I just think that as a farmer, a lot of the rural areas are now aware of it. A lot of the city areas, suburbs are aware. We're getting tired of the corruption, whether it be in the banks, whether it be with corporate, and it's trickling down into the rural areas. So I do think that there is going to be a major upheaval. That is my only personal opinion. I mean, I don't know if that's fact, but I just feel that the more your toes are stepped on, somebody's going to react, and it's coming soon, and that's what I see. I see it in the backyard, that you're getting tired of, you don't want to be told what to do with your farmland. As soon as you sign that lease, you're going to be told what to do with your farmland. And that is the same way with, if you're in the city, you're getting tired of this Wall Street corruption. And so that's only an opinion.
I guess my only comment about the corruption aspect is I don't understand how we evolved into corruption being so acceptable. I don't know what got us to this point that it's all right for them to take money, it's all right for them to do that. That baffles me and bothers me, and my kids can't even understand it. And I don't want them growing up thinking that it's an acceptable operation.
Okay, we're gonna do one more.